Hi, I'm Ms. Matsuoka, and I'm going to teach you about how to graph rational functions. So we have a couple of rational functions here, and we're going to go ahead and graph them. There's just a couple steps we need to do, as you can see. So the very first thing we need to do is if there's an x in the denominator and it's negative, you need to multiply the top and the bottom by -1. The second step is do synthetic division to get into the right form, and the last thing is just graphing. Well, the first one is already in the right form. So we have a general form that we kind of follow here. So the general form is we have like y equals a over x minus h plus k. So this, we really have a couple things going on here. We have our horizontal asymptote, and our horizontal asymptote is going to be at y equals k. We have a vertical asymptote here, which is going to be at x equals h. And then we have our range and domain. So our domain is just really the opposite of the vertical asymptote. So x is not equal to h. And the range here is the opposite of the horizontal asymptote. So y is not equal to k. So we really want to get everything looking like this. So this first one is already in that form. The other important thing to remember is that k here A here will flip the equation if it's negative. So if A is negative, it's going to flip your graph. And I'll show you what that looks like in a bit. So I'm going to erase this for now, and we will get to graphing our first one. Okay, so the first thing we're doing here is we're looking at the horizontal and vertical asymptotes. So the horizontal asymptote here is y equals 3. The vertical asymptote here is going to be x equals 4. And now we're going to do domain and range. So domain is going to be x is not equal to 4. And range is going to be y is not equal to negative, or just to 3. We're going to graph this now. So I'm going to graph it. Looks like this. Okay, so we have our asymptotes. Our horizontal asymptote is y equals 3, so it's just right here. Our vertical asymptote is at x equals 4, so it's right here. And our graph looks, our normal graph looks like this. So you can see that my asymptotes really divided the graph into 4 areas, right? So my graph is only in the top right and the bottom left, and that's how it normally is. So if it's positive, it will be like that. If it's negative, though, it's going to flip. So this part will flip downward, and this part here will flip upward. So it'll be in the opposite edges there, opposite corners. So let's look at this one now. So this one is not in the same form as this. So we need to actually do other stuff here. So we check our first step here. The x in the denominator is not negative, so I don't need to do the first step. Now I'm going to do synthetic division. You could also do long division to get it into the right form. So when I do long division or synthetic, that will help me get it in the right form, and then I have to do one more step to get it in the perfect form here. So I'm going to do synthetic division. So the first thing you want to do with synthetic division is you want to do x plus 5 equals 0. So you're setting the denominator equal to 0, and now we're going to solve for x. So we subtract 5 from both sides here to get x equals -5. Now with synthetic division, the -5 will go in our little box. The coefficients of the top part are going to go on the outside here, so 3 and 2. First thing you want to do is you want to bring this 3 down. You multiply 3 and -5 to get -15, and you just add straight down to get -13. This -13 is our remainder. So right now we have 3 minus 13 over, and it's over this x plus 5 here. From here, this is still not quite in the same form as this, so we're just going to flip them around to make them in the right form. So it's going to be y equals -13 over x plus 5 plus 3. Now we can find everything and graph and all that stuff. So I'm going to write it up here. So we have our horizontal asymptote is going to be y equals 3. Our vertical asymptote is going to be x equals negative 5. And let's see, domain. You know what, I'm just going to write it up here. So domain is going to be the opposite, which is x is not equal to negative 5. And the range is also the opposite, which is y is not equal to 3. And now I'm going to go ahead and graph like this. Okay. And now I have my asymptotes that I'm graphing. So you can see that this is a negative, so everything is flipped. So it's going to be, instead of being the top right and the bottom left, it's going to be the top left here. And the bottom right here. A couple things that I want you to notice before we go into our next example here is with the graph. So first off, with the graph, notice how I'm getting closer to those asymptotes. It's not touching, but they're getting closer and closer to them. And I want to see that in the graph. Also, notice how we always take the opposite sign for the vertical asymptote, but not for the horizontal asymptote. It's very, very common that we're going to take the opposite sign just for the h and not for the k. Alright, so I'm going to do like one more example of the graphing stuff, and then I'll give you your bonus question. So here's our last example before the bonus question. So first off, we can notice that there is a negative in the denominator. So that means we need to multiply the top and the bottom by negative 1. So I multiply the top and the bottom by negative 1, and I need to make sure to distribute that. So on the top I'm going to get negative 2x plus 1, and on the bottom I'm going to get x plus 1. So the reason to get it to be positive is because in the actual form that I showed you guys at the beginning of the video, the x is always positive and it's always by itself. It never has like 2x or 3x or anything in front of it. So it's always just x, and because that's how we know how to graph it. So if it's not, then you need to make it like that. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and do our synthetic division. Actually, you know what? I'm going to show you how to do it with long division, because in case you're like, I'm not so sure about synthetic division, let's look at long division. To me, it's a little bit more logical. So this is really asking us to divide. So it's negative 2x plus 1 divided by this x plus 1. And it's just like normal division. So what do I need to multiply x by to get negative 2x? Just negative 2. Now I multiply and I distribute this negative 2 with the x plus 1. I get negative 2x minus 2. And then I subtract, right? Just in regular, like in regular long division. So you subtract. I need to distribute my negative. I don't have any more x's. I have a 3 left over, so that's my remainder. It's going to be 3 over whatever I'm dividing by, which is x plus 1 here. Remember, this is not quite yet in the right form, so we're going to make it in the right form. So it's going to be y equals 3 over x plus 1 minus 2. Now I'm going to go ahead and, not graph it yet, because I still need to find all my stuff. So I still need to find like the horizontal asymptote, my vertical asymptote, and the domain and range. And the range, okay. So my horizontal asymptote we can see is y equals negative 2. My vertical asymptote is x equals negative 1. Remember, you're always setting that denominator equal to 0 for that vertical asymptote. That's why it's kind of the opposite. The domain is just x is not equal to negative 1, and the range is y is not equal to negative 2. Now I'm going to go ahead and graph it. So I have my graph right here. Okay, and let me graph my asymptotes first. So x equals negative 1 is right here, y equals negative 2 is right there. It's positive, so it's in the normal place still, just like that, and up, and like that, and over. Okay, and so that was the last example that I'm going to show you. Here is your bonus question. Make sure that you follow all the steps and feel free to kind of pause or go back and look if you need that extra help. All right, good luck.